And that the same God that helped us yesterday, the Bible says in Jeremiah that there is no shadow of turning. The one thing I love about God is that he cannot change and that he cannot lie. And so whoever he was, he is. And there's nothing we can do that can make God better. Great is thy faithfulness, oh God, my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not thy compassions, they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever will be. Summer or winter, springtime and harvest, sun, moon, and stars in their courses above, join with all nature in manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, thy mercy and thy love. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Thank you, Jesus. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. And all I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Here's my favorite verse. Pardon for all my sins. I thought it should have been somebody else's favorite verse too. And peace that endureth, thine own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hopes for all of my tomorrows. Blessings are mine with 10,000 thrown in beside. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Every time I wake up in the morning, a brand new mercy I see. And all I have ever needed, thy hand hath always provided. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Great is your mercy toward me, your loving kindness toward me, your tender mercies I see day after day. Forever faithful to me, always providing for me, for me. Great is your mercy toward me, great is your grace. Help me say, great is your mercy, great is your mercy, your loving kindness toward me, your tender mercy I see day after day. Forever faithful. Y'all not singing? Great is your mercy. Great is your grace. I need you to open your mouth and say, great is your mercy, great is your mercy toward me, your loving kindness toward me, your tender mercy. I see day after day, after day, after day, forever faithful to me, always providing for me. Great is your mercy toward me. Great is your grace.
Well, good morning, all. Thank you for joining us this morning at SACAM. We are going to be presenting this morning something that'll be extremely interesting. You are in for a treat. My name is Heather Williams, and I'm the program director for SACAM. And we have brought together today a couple of individuals who will tell you the story of their legacy. We have brought also an individual who will tell you about the importance of the story. This morning, we will ask that if you have any questions, please, if you will, put them into the bottom of your screen where it says Q&A. We will get to those questions as soon as possible. We ask that you please bear with us as we try to get through all of the questions. And if there are any questions that we may not be able to address during the time that speakers are speaking, we will address them at the end of the presentation. This morning we have a wonderful, wonderful moderator. She comes to us from St. Edward's University. Jenna Heath, Professor Heath, is an Associate Dean in the School of Arts and Humanities and Associate Professor of Journalism and Digital Media at St. Edward's. She is also a member of the board of the Texas Oral History Association. Her oral history project, Our China Stories, focuses on people adopted from China and their families. Before joining the St. Edward's faculty in 2008, Professor Jenna spent 2 decades as a newspaper reporter and editor, including 4 years as education editor at the San Antonio Express News. So we bring to you today Professor Jenna Heath.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be with you all today. Together, we will be learning about the Wilcox Ranch, which is the oldest and last African-American working ranch in Jake's Colony, a freedmen's colony in Seguin, Texas. We will be speaking with brother and sister Lola and Marlon Wilcox Moore, whose mother left Seguin for California in 1974. Lola and Marlon grew up in Oakland and Berkeley, California, and came to the ranch each summer to work and spend time. This powerful place holds many stories and great importance for this family, for Texas, and for all of us who want to understand more about how sharing our family stories keeps us connected to one another and to our pasts. And without further ado, I think we should get started with the questions that we have for Lola and Marlon. So, I wonder if one of you would like to tell us a bit about the founders of the Wilcox Ranch. Who were the founders?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
One quick thing. Good morning. It was our grandmother, actually,
not our mother.
Could you tell us a bit about the founders? Tell us a bit about them, please.
Yes. Good morning.
Marlon.
Welcome to the Wilcox Ranch. The founder of the Wilcox Ranch was Henry, my great great grandfather, Henry Wilcox. He was the founder. He was a slave. He came from Guyana, Africa. He was born in 1833, and he was transferred to Kentucky, and then he was sold, and his slave master was George Wilcox, and they were moved to Seguin, Texas, in Guadalupe County. And he was a slave until he was free after emancipation. And he purchased land. He was one of the first slave freemen to purchase land and have recorded at the courthouse.
When did he arrive in, I'm sorry, Marlon, to interrupt. When did he arrive in Seguin?
That one, I'm not sure what year he arrived there, but he was born in 1833 and bought the land in 1870.
I see. Can you tell us any stories surrounding the purchase of the property? Lola, perhaps you can tell us something about the purchase of the property.
Well, there is a story that, of course, he was able to buy this land because the white folks thought that nothing would grow on this land and it wouldn't be, suitable to feed his family or do anything with. They didn't want this land because of the soil and different types of soil there, right? And 150 years later, I guess that wasn't true. Huh?
Yes, so he was obviously able not only to purchase the land, but the family made this a really thriving place. What was life like on the ranch for the family?
Told about my grandmother, she said they had a very good childhood growing up. There were 11 kids grew up in this house, which is the homestead, 6 girls and five boys. And they said they had plenty of food. They worked every day. Everybody had a job to do on the ranch. And they was pretty comfortable growing up, as far as having cattle, plenty of crops to farm, and they did a lot of sharing along the colony, which is Jace Colony Road. They had a lot of families out here at one time. There were 70 families that came to the colony in the late 1800s. Mm-hmm. And they had their own church out here. They had their own school. At one time, my grandmother told me George Washington Carver came to the colony to show them how to grow peanuts and crop and to enhance and fertilize their farmland. And he stayed right here in this house, which is a homestead. He stayed in this house for a couple of nights and showed all the farmers and ranchers out here how to enhance their crops and stuff during the late 1800s.
I read a newspaper article that you sent, Marlon, and it talked about the church, and it sounded like so much of the life of the community was really centered in that church.
Yes, it was. Yes, that's the church my grandmother grew up in. All the siblings grew up in that church. There was a time where everybody got together on Sundays, and they had great services and great music, and just a good time for them at that location. It burned down. I want to say my grandmother told me early 1900s. It burned down the church.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I think I also read that would it have been your grandmother who rode her bike into Seguin for music lessons?
Oh, that was my auntie Mary Ann. Mary Ann.
Okay.
Yeah, that was Mary Ann. Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was a great auntie. She was really one of the one that kept this land going and kept, because a lot of the kids and siblings moved to California in the 30s and 40s. But Mary Ann came back here and she kept this ranch going. And that's why I'm still here today, because of her.
I see. And when she came back, I guess, a lot of the family had moved on. When she came back, did she have to do work sort of restoring things, or had it been, yeah.
Yes, she did. She did a lot to keep it up. And then I know my uncle Irvin Moore in Carolyn Moore was also a great inspiration for this house. Keep it up, because if you don't live in the house deteriorates. Mary Ann passed away in 2005. My grandmother passed away in 2007. No one was standing in the house at the time, so the house was going down and deteriorating. So my uncle Irvin and Carolyn got really hands-on and involved, and lifted the house up and kept it going and kept it going and kept it up. So that was a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Lola, are there stories about the life of the ranch that you'd like to share?
Well, there's actually my son, Cairo, spent a lot of time with my grandmother in her later years at the house, and he did some interviewing, Cairo, and he would ask some questions like, who was your best friend? Did you guys have games? Did you have a TV? Did you have chores? And all those things. And so he's on there somewhere. He could probably talk about that a little bit. Yeah. So when we went to the country at first, it was not a fun place for me because of the bugs and stuff. There was a lot of rodents and just a lot of creatures out there that wasn't really fun at first. And so, but over time, we began to understand that this is something much bigger than just us coming to the big house and spending time there. It's a pretty amazing legacy that we're living, and things are steadily unfolding. So yeah, it's a pretty magical space, and it was for them too. And what did Gran always say to you when she moved back to Texas? She said, "I need you down here more than a dead man needs a casket," right? Did she tell you that? That's what he always said, and it's happening, right?
I made a promise to her that I would move back to Texas, and so I did that, and just keep it going. That's why I'm here.
They are ecstatic. I can tell you that.
What was the transition back to Texas like from California?
It was pretty easy for me. I've been coming here so much as a kid and growing up as a teenager here, and so I always loved being outdoors, working in the ranch with the cattle, hanging out with Jackson and Sam Jackson and them. So I learned a lot about just being out here, working the cattle, working the land, working in the hay fields, watermelon fields. So it's always been a part of me. So it wasn't hard for me at all to transition here at all.
It's really a part of who we are. So, and the proof of that is that we have pictures of him in the same spots, out on the land with cows as like a 10-year-old or 11-year-old kid or whatever. And it's just amazing that we're still doing this decades later, and that we're writing the story as we go. And I didn't know many years ago if that's what we'll be doing, but we're set up to do it, and it's happening now, and it's pretty amazing to watch it unfold.
I'm sure it's incredibly rewarding. I'm interested in your son deciding to record stories and to kind of interview family members. How did he decide to do that, and what's that been like for him?
Well, he was like 9 years old when he did this.
Yeah,
and so he's spending time with he's spending time with my grandmother, her sister, Mary Ann, and I have the notebook actually where the questions were written down, and he sat with them and they sat and answered all the questions. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, maybe I don't know if the participants can talk or not. I mean, they can't talk to us, huh?
No, but I think they can participate through the Q&A. So if there's something that, cool. that he would like to add, then yeah.
Yeah, so ironically, Gran would say that Mary Ann was her best friend growing up, and they ended up being the last 2 of 11 living in that house. It's pretty ironic, yeah.
And you were talking about your own kind of experiences initially first coming as a child. How did it start to become clear to you, as you said, that this was more than just going to the big house? This was really about a legacy. How did that awareness start to dawn?
Well, honestly, that awareness became clear to me a few years ago, like maybe 6 years ago, because just growing up, I would always write down the stories my grandmother told me for some random reason. At the time, I don't know why, but I'm a writer, so I would just write down notes and stories. And all of us have lots of pictures of our families and different experiences with these same people in the same place or in different places, actually. So in 2002, I wrote a paper, and the last paragraph of the paper is really what started this, but I still didn't know at the time. And the last paragraph was something like this: who were these people? What were they really like? Do we share a kindred bond? I'd love to get into some of their heads and tell some of these yet untold stories. and help some of these souls have a more peaceful rest, something like that I wrote in 2002. I put it away in a leather box for a dozen years. And in 2014, something is saying, bring those papers out, those pictures and all these things out, bring them into your immediate sphere. And I started to do that. And out of that, I created a line of ancestral greeting cards. And so a few years ago, we were talking, the two of us, and I'm like, this is not just something that we came up with. It's so much bigger than that, because we look back over our whole life and the stories are already there. We're set up to do this clearly because there are too many points of connection. Too many people might call them coincidences, which I don't believe in. I believe there's serendipity and there's definitely providence. And we are living proof of that. And we work in tandem. We do very, very different parts of this work, but it is our life work for sure. I believe that our parents had to come together to have us to do this work. Like that's how deep it feels to us. Like we're living it. It's not an ancestry.com story. It's just something that we've been living. It's coursing through our veins. And the most magical part is that it's steadily unfolding. Like pieces come to us all the time, right? And the stories are still being written. So it's a living legacy for sure. Absolutely. And we are what the book of Isaiah calls the repairers of the breach. That's who we are. That's what we are.
That's so beautiful. So you're collaborating really together to not only maintain this legacy, but to live it, because both as a matter of a kind of tribute and a bringing the past forward and actually living the experience of the ranch. Yes. Is it difficult to do this over distance from two different states, or how's it been in COVID to be collaborating around this? Does the technology make it easier?
Pretty amazing, right? And so this very setting is a perfect example of us working together in tandem. For instance, my brother happened to be at the San Antonio International Airport maybe the end of July, and he sees a branding iron exhibit that was created by SACAM and I think the Texas Kidney Foundation. And so he sends me a picture of the branding iron. Of course, we get excited because he's been for over a year or so talking about having our great-grandpa and our great-great-grandpa's branding irons re-registered to use, right? So when he sees the exhibit, he sends me a message. I'm like, this is so cool. Who did it? He's like, I don't know. And so, but the ancestors and the Most High knows that his brain is very different than my brain, right? My brain's a little bit Rain Man-esque. And so if I see the picture, I'm going to say, who did the exhibit? He's like, I don't know. And so I zoomed in on the picture and saw SACAM and called, and here we are. So it's like we don't orchestrate any of this. It happens very organically, but it happens all the time. And so this is a real living thing, absolutely. And so far, this distance hasn't made a difference, obviously.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love to hear. Usually these kinds of stories and the way they develop it is organic, if you can receive it. You know what I mean? It's like you have to be able to receive it. So you've led us very naturally, Lola, to a question about the family cattle brands. And I was wondering if you could tell us about them and whether they have specific significance.
That's his domain for sure.
Okay, Marlon,
no doubt.
Can you tell us a bit about the family cattle brands and their significance?
Oh yes, well the cattle brand that we have two of them. We have my great grandfather's cattle brand, which is H and an E stands for Henry Wilcox, with a crescent on top of it. That brand was used and it was registered in the county in the late 1800s. And it's amazing that we still have this branding iron that he used on his cattle, which is a T and a heart with a flame going around it. And that's the brand he used on his cattle in the 1900s. So it's just amazing that we still have these artifacts to have and be able to hold them and touch them. And I just got my great grandfather's branding iron, which is Henry Wilcox. I just got it registered in the state, in the county of Guadalupe County, and I'll be using that branding iron in the near future on the cattle. And so it's great to have it. It's just very, very, very historical to have that brand still. It's over 100-some years old branding iron.
So for those of us who are not, don't know much about ranches or branding irons, what does registering the brand involve? What do you have to do?
Well, what it does is you just take the branding iron and you have to go down to the county courthouse You have to register running on. And what it does is it just shows you that these cattle belong to you, because cattle wrestling still goes on in these days. People will steal cattle. So by you having your cattle marked, they know this cattle belongs to the Wilcox Ranch. And it kind of protects the cattle from being, this and that. So yeah, it's good to have it.
Can you tell us about the ranch and the cattle? Like how I once made the mistake as someone who was new to Texas of asking someone how big their ranch was, and I was corrected very quickly. This is a rude question, and you're not supposed to ask people this. So I'm always very careful about asking about specifics, but I am curious, like, what kind of cattle do you have? Can you tell us a little bit about just the working life of the ranch right now?
Oh, we have Bringus bull, we have Charolais cattle, and we have Charolais. So our cattle is pretty much Bringus and Charolais cattle, and we have beef cattle, which is and that's pretty much it. We just have cattle. We used to have hay out here also. We grow hay, but so this is really it's a working ranch, So cattle and calf, that's what we do.
Not we, it's you. Because he is like the tactile caretaker of the land and the house. That's just the way it is. Like everything, mending fences, deer hunting season, keeping the cemetery clean, every single thing he does, really. So I know that this is something much bigger than us, right? It has to be. Yeah, it's amazing.
So that leads me to the next question, which is who operates the ranch today? And it sounds, Marlon, like you're the head honcho when it comes to that.
I operate the ranch at this time. My uncle Irvin was a big part of the ranch. He kept the ranch going. He was big in the cattle business also. Before him was Mary Ann, my uncle brother Henry. So it's like everybody gets a turn to look over the ranch. And now it's like my watch to look over the ranch and make sure that the ranch keeps on thriving and keeps on going. But I tell you what, if it wasn't for my uncle Irvin keeping it going, we wouldn't be here today. I want to just thank you for that, So
and before him, if it weren't for our Aunt Doll, one of the siblings too, because she helped save the land, save the ranch decades ago. So there's been several people that have stood in the gap to make sure that things are maintained and that it's sustained and that it can be a legacy that carries on. And that is a big part of who the Wilcoxes were. They were definitely about family and about their community and helping each other grow and thrive. So that's the only reason that we're still here with this. That's the only reason. It's because they were operating as a family, as a unit.
Yes, it's still today. That's it.
Yep.
And is that something that, does the family sort of get together and have a big meeting about what's going to happen with the ranch? Or is this something that just naturally everybody in the family kind of understands as a central value of the family, that we are maintaining this place, that we love this place, and that it's something we're all going to pitch in and do? How do you kind of talk about and communicate about it across the larger family?
Well, that's a good question, because many years ago, as I said, they operated as a family and they were very connected and functioned as a community, and they all helped each other. And so in our parents' generation, things began to shift and unravel in some ways, which is largely in part, there's several reasons. One reason is because at that time, we needed to stick together to stay alive. We had to be a family and be a unit to thrive and to flourish. We work together, right? And so things begin to shift in our society. We go from being an agricultural society to an industrial one, and now we are in technology, right? So things begin to shift. When people move from the South to the West, our families become dispersed. Women leave the household. Things change. We wanted to integrate, and here we are. And it is honestly disconnected compared to how our grandparents were, compared to how we were raised. So like when I was born, there was 4 generations in my household. And today we live a very different life. So we are, as I said, repairing the breach. Things unraveled in many ways in this lineage. And I think that some people are put in place to stand in the gap for such a time as this to hopefully maintain it and hopefully carry on this legacy, because we hope that this is going to be here 150 years from now even, with this work, because it is valuable. And so that's the big piece of writing it down. They left us many treasures, and like just all kinds of things like pictures and stories and letters and all these things. And so now one of my assignments is to write this coffee table book so that when I'm gone, this will long outlive us, because the work that we're doing and the work that they did is too valuable to dismiss and ignore. Really, it is. And we won't.
That was my next
Not on our
question,
watch.
whether there were, whether there is a book in the, whether there's a book in the making, because it sure sounds like there should be.
There definitely is. Absolutely. It's a work in progress. This is all a part of it. Really, it is.
So we also wanted to hear a little bit about how the larger Jake's Colony community has changed. You make some reference this, Lola, when you talk about the fact that everybody had to be together to survive, and that obviously things have changed over time. Can we hear a little bit about Jake's Colony and its evolution?
Well, one thing for sure is that when we were coming up, we knew that anybody coming down that road, right, was coming to the big house, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's nothing like that. He can speak on that more because he actually is there all the time. So yeah, it's radically shifted.
So,
Yeah, it
Marlon,
shifted a
can
lot.
you? Yes.
Go ahead. Well, the thing is, it's so many investors coming in trying to buy land out here. Like I said, one time there were 70 freeman families out here on this colony. And what happens is, over a time period, the family trickles down to the grandkids and the great grandkids, and then a lot of kids don't want to be involved with the country and the farming land, this and that. So what happens is, once they inherit the land, they end up selling the land. And that continues to go on and on through each family down the road. Next thing you know, the ones who was all here, it's all gone now. So now you have investors coming in, buying all this land, parceling it out to 4 or 5 acre parcels, and selling it to people who wants to have a country life. But it's just like the value of the land is not what it used to be, far as the level of the people being out here and being a part of the country. It's just totally different now. This road used to be a nice, peaceful road. It's like a highway now. It's been divided up so much where it's just totally different.
And so it's hard to believe, but even Jake's Colony has become gentrified in so many ways, if we're truthful about things. And what's funny about this piece is that on the actual deed from 1870, it actually says, I'll just read this last line. It says, "To have and to hold until the said Henry Wilcox and Andrew Rankin, their heirs and assigns forever." So I take that to mean they bought this land in 1870, and that we're supposed to hold on to it until the end of time, until the last descendant is here, basically. So that's kind of how it feels too, being the last working ranch out of 70 Black working ranches, and there's only one remnant still standing. So that kind of speaks for itself, right?
It does. It sounds like, is it possible that what's happening here is that you're just going to be surrounded by kind of country McMansions? Are the people who are buying, are they living there full time, or do they like buy their weekend country McMansion and come out for the weekend?
Yeah, pretty much both.
Vacation
homes, right? Vacation homes are people moving in full time, but wants to get an acre or two, and that's pretty much it. So it's changing a lot. Definitely.
Yeah, we hope that this work that other people in the pool of relatives will understand the value in this, and that this is something that money can't buy. The stories and the lineage that's flowing through our bloodlines, and the stories, and what's ironic about us as a group, even though we're disconnected, all of us, most of us anyway, at least our generation and maybe the next one under us, they have amazing stories and experiences with these same people. We're all related to them the same exact way, but not everybody got the same calling. You know what I mean? I look at this as a divine assignment for us, for sure. Like, I am a griot, a sacred storyteller, no doubt about it. This is what I'm born to do, to talk and to write. And the same with my brother. He's doing what he's born to do, really. This is not like something that we decided. They chose us, really. And we just agreed to the assignment, basically. And we didn't even know that we're set up to do it, and we're doing it. And it's pretty amazing. It is.
So I think it's great because you're going to maintain this legacy and this history regardless. I mean, and for the people who are weekend country people, they will have the benefit, if they want to take advantage of it, of some education and understanding of this family legacy. So it's really a gift that you're maintaining.
Yeah.
It's a huge gift.
Could you tell us a little bit about the Ridley Cemetery? During the slideshow, I was seeing the pictures, and I'm curious about it and its significance for your family.
Well, that's a cool thing too, because I guess maybe 2019, my brother had the idea to do the application for the Texas Historical Society to have the cemetery declared a historical landmark. And the cemetery has some interesting stories around it too, right? So this is another example of us working in tandem. So he had to do his part of the application, I had to do my part, which are very different parts, right? And it included like a 1-page narrative. And now I'm being prodded into the next part, which is a 10-page narrative, like a research paper. And so, but ironically, the cemetery, really, he can talk about the background in the cemetery, but I want to say that we have a cousin Edna, and we used to visit cousin Edna like in the 70s. So she was in her 80s or so at the time, right? So in the 90s, my grandma gave me cousin Edna's Bible. And in her Bible, it has like her parents' death dates and birth dates and stuff. And her dad, in my head, I remember like I have her Bible right here. So he was cousin Edna's Bible. Can you see it? Okay, wow, so yeah. He was born in 1853, right? So all I know is his name and the year he's born. Well, fast forward to like maybe last year, my brother sends me a picture. The picture has 3 guys. One of them is our great grandpa Thomas sitting on the side of a car. 2 other guys standing next to him. I'm like, who are those guys? That's cousin Daniel. Really? I was like, get out of here. That's cousin Edna's dad. I had never seen him before in my life. So it took all those years for me to see a picture of him. And you can talk about why the cemetery is called Ridley Cemetery. He's our cousin, though. He's our cousin.
Ah, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So it's a very.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Marlon. No, please go on.
Yeah. So the importance of getting the cemetery as a historical landmark was because a lot of cemeteries in the South, they seem to get buried over, grown over, built over, and they get lost. So by me having a cemetery as a historical landmark, it'll have to be protected and guarded 30, 40, 50 years from now. It'll still be guarded by the state of Texas. Nobody ever can come over and build houses over it, this and that, because that happens. That's pretty common. New York, down south, wherever, it's always happening all the time.
Right.
So it's a sacred ground, sacred burial. And that cemetery we have is a cemetery of all the families who were born and raised on the colony and descendants.
Wow.
When they died, they were buried at that cemetery, which is called Ridley Cemetery, Jackson County Cemetery. So it's on our land, and it's for people who have deceased and moved on, and that's where they get buried. That's where they rest at, final resting place.
And it sounds like the process for the historical designation is pretty intense. It sounds pretty involved. Do you have any sense of how long the process will take?
Well, repeat the question, please.
I said it sounds like the process for the historical designation is pretty intense. And I was wondering if you have an idea of how long that could take.
Well, the first part wasn't bad at all. Actually, it was a pretty simple application, pretty straightforward. He had to take pictures and measurements and talk about the types of soil there, types of flowers there, type of fencing, who's buried there, things like that. And so it was pretty straightforward, that part of the application. The next part for the marker is a different story. I'm not really looking forward to doing that part, really. It's a lot of work, but it's happening. We're going to do it. We're going to do it, of course, so that we'll have an official marker. But at this point, it is designated a historical landmark by the state of Texas for sure. But there's another part to the application. All of this is completely voluntary. And so, yeah, we'll be working on that piece pretty soon. That part is a little bit more laborious for sure, because it wants a bibliography and a 5-10 page narrative and a certain font and all this stuff that, it's not so much fun. But yeah, so that's coming up, but that's a little bit a longer process, but we're going to be engaged in it pretty soon, I guess. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. And it's very interesting for, just to have an understanding of what this takes. Again, it's such a kind of statement about the level of commitment that you have to this place.
Definitely.
So I think you've talked about this one, which is what motivated you to apply for the state historic designation for the ranch. What was the sort of key motivation for that decision?
It's a part of us securing things and rebuilding the foundation of this community and of our ancestors. And as he said, that you won't be able to plow over this land and build condos. It's not happening. It's not happening.
Yeah.
Not on our watch, right?
And what are your current plans for the property? You're securing it. You're clearly in the process of securing it, giving it a very important designation. Any other plans?
To build me a tiny house there.
Keep it thriving. Just keep
That's
it
a good
thriving, keep
plan.
it in the family.
Yeah.
And Lola, if you build a tiny house there, would you come to visit from California, or do you ever
Oh yeah,
consider
yeah.
making
I
a leap?
visit there, but I would stay a lot longer. I would spend more time there for sure, absolutely. And I will once COVID is over. That was always the plan anyway. But COVID's definitely interrupted some things. But yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because and another thing is every time it's like this is a crazy wild ride that we're on because we don't it's not already written. We're still living this, and we discover new things all the time, like pieces from the past, come up and just it's pretty amazing. So yeah, we're pretty enamored with these people and excited to see what happens next because there's so many pieces to it. So we're just staying tuned and doing the work, doing what we're called to do. That's it.
How did you learn about your family history?
We were just born. That's it.
Yeah,
That's how it feels. We were
grandmother.
born. But my grandmother, it's my paternal grandmother. My father's mother was the matriarch, and she was into it. Huh?
My father, John Moore. I tell you what, if it wasn't for him, he was a blessing in so many ways. By him having us and being a part of this family has been great for us. My grandmother, we sit on the porch many nights and talked about, her childhood growing up, being out here in the country, this and that. So I kept those stories and I kept them in my mind. I shared them with people so it would never get old, so that was important. It's just when a person gets old, it's important to sit down and talk to them and get as much knowledge as you can out of them in history because knowledge and nothing because you're getting real history, organic, and it's important to sit down and talk to your elders and get as much information as you can. That's very important. Take that time out and do that.
You want to get it before it's gone.
Exactly.
So someone
also, I want to share with you real quick.
Oh, go ahead.
I also want to share with you real quick is this book right here is called Slave Transactions of Guadalupe County. Mm-hmm. And this book has my great grandfather Henry Wilcox in there as a slave, and it has his master in there. This is we go back in the county of Guadalupe County, and this is called Slave Transactions of Guadalupe County of Texas. And you'll see Henry Wilcox's name in there, and his master was George Wilcox. This is back in 1800, and this is just a good book to have for the family.
And that book was written by a guy who lives in Seguin, actually. And the book was published in California, which is ironic. But Mark Gretchen is the author of that book. And when we found out about the book, I called the publishing company, and we met him. We're friends with him now, the guy who wrote the book. And he's a beekeeper and a retired, I think, a researcher or librarian in Seguin, actually. So it's pretty ironic to have that book. And then another book we want to mention too is a book that, so when Deborah mentioned to me about Dr. Andrea Roberts' work, the Texas Freedom Colonies, I thought about this book that I have called, let's see how I can get in the camera. It's called Freedom Colonies, right? And in this book, it talks about Jake's Colony. And in like 100 years ago, there was a thing called the Rosenwald Fund, where people could apply for money to build schools. And so Jake's Colony, they did that. And so this is the sentence. It says, for example, Jake's Colony in Guadalupe County built a 4-teacher school in 1920 that cost $4,475. The local blacks paid $3,275. Whites paid nothing. The state paid nothing. And the Rosenwald Fund paid $1,200. So yeah, so that's pretty. These books, kind of help us document things, and then when the coffee table book comes out, it'll have all these pieces. So yeah, it's pretty magical stuff.
Thank you for sharing those. We have some questions coming up in the Q&A, and so I want to make sure that we get to these. If it's okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
just start asking them. Okay.
Cool.
There's a person who wants to know what the difference is between a ranch and a farm. I'm just going to go in order as the questions have come, and that's number one. What's the difference between a ranch and a farm? Maybe Marlon, you can help us out with that one.
Right. A farm is usually when you have cattle, not cattle, you have like dairy cattle. You're growing crops, you're doing corn, you're doing hay, cotton, vegetables. That's usually a farm. A ranch is usually like a horse, cattle ranch that you working cattle. That's considered a ranch. And the farm is usually when you're doing more crop work than livestock work.
Okay, great. And the next question is, do you know what prompted so much of the family to relocate to California in the 1930s? Was it a part of the movement of many farmers and ranchers across the nation's midsection?
Oh yeah, that was definitely, like, just in American history, that's what people did. They migrated from the South to the West for more opportunities, and like I said, moving from an agricultural society into a more industrial one at the time. It was just definitely the movement, absolutely. But one thing Grant said when she was in California for all those decades, she wanted to get home. She's like, I just want to go back home. But her husband, after my grandpa, she married someone else. And so he never wanted to live in Texas. But as soon as he died, where'd she go? Back to the big house. Right?
Back to Texas.
Yep.
Yeah. Can you tell us about some of the other families who lived in Jake's colony?
Well, we're friends with one of the, what's his name? Earl Reddick is the great-great-grandson of the founder of Jake's Colony, actually.
Which is Jake Rogers. Jake Rogers is the founder of the Jake's Colony. He was a big part of the gathering the community together and just developing the community. So the road is called Jake's Colony, named after Jake Roger, which is Earl Reddick's great-great-grandfather.
Right.
And you all are friends. You're all in contact.
Yeah. Somewhat distant cousins, basically, go down the line. My great-grandmother, Tilla Wilcox, her mother's name is Priscilla Reddick, so she was a Reddick also.
Wow. Does the ranch have access to irrigation? Sorry.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
And then, is there a schematic of the historical colony to see boundaries and where the Wilcoxes were and where the cemetery is located?
Yes. Yep, there is.
And so the next one, which is the last one for the moment, is, can you speak to the significance of African Americans owning land less than 50 years from enslavement and some of the hiccups experienced along the way?
Yeah, that's pretty impressive, because in 1870, Black folks were just stepping out of enslavement, right? And so for this man to be able to purchase this land was a huge feat. And I know that they went through hell to hold on to this land. But we do believe in the right to bear arms. Wilcoxes do. The Texans do, right? In general. But not just that, but they had some kind of wherewithal and tenacity and ingenuity and entrepreneurship and all these things that enabled them to not just buy the land, but to keep it. So I can only imagine the nightmares they went through to hold on to it. It could not have been easy. There's no way. Because what they did, all of those decades for over a century, is a huge feat even by today's standards. Really, it is incredible stuff.
It is, and I was wondering the same thing actually about what it must have been like and what kind of attacks and hostilities people must have dealt with. And I wonder, is there much in the family discussion or record of stories about having to protect themselves.
Well, no, I think that a lot of these stories are like left off record, but clearly they went through some hell. There's no way they couldn't have, right? And being a businessman, you have to be a certain way and have a certain makeup and be cut from a certain cloth to have what they had and to be who they were. There's no other way. This is not for the faint of heart. Absolutely not. So they had some serious heart, and I have like crazy respect for them, and I am enamored with them for so many obvious reasons. And you guys are just getting snippets of the tale, of the story. These are just, micro snippets of it, really.
The last formal question we have, and then I think what I want to do is invite both of you to share with us anything I haven't asked you that you really would like to include here in this discussion. Is why is this legacy or this history important to you?
Oh God, it's I don't even know who I'd be without it, really. This is who I am. It's not something that I bought in a store or found online. This is my life. This is what I'm living, and these people are coursing through my veins. And I believe that we all come to the planet to do different things. Like, you can't do what I came to do, and I can't do what you came to do, right? And so I believe that my brother and I were definitely specifically and strategically chosen, and the evidence is all around us. Like, we didn't necessarily choose this as some hobby or some fun, cool thing to do. It's who we really are. And so, as he said, as I said before, I'm thankful that my mom married my dad, and that they had us. I think that's even bigger than that they had to come together for us to do this. And I believe in spiritual things and our ancestors and the Most High. I believe they knew who they were choosing to do this assignment, because it is very specific, it is very strategic, that we have what we have, and that we value it the way that we value it, and that it's going to long outlive us. So something happened along the way that was imparted into us, like on a spiritual level. It wasn't like somebody sat us down, even though Grand did always say, never sell the land, don't divide the land. It's what Great Grandpa Thomas always said, right? And those things are true, but it was something that happened like almost through osmosis, that we got the message. This is important. This is who you are. And I don't even know how else to be or what else I would do. This is a huge part of of our real lives, like straight up, really it is.
How about you, Marlon? Why is this legacy, this history important to you?
Well, I just know the struggle it was to keep this land together. Just being a part of the history, not too many people can go and say they have land to go to and still have it in their family still. That's very precious to me. It's a blessing to have it. It's a blessing to have the family that we have, the Wilcox, and more. It's just a blessing, So I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Do you talk? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Do you talk about this with the younger generation in the family? How do they regard the big house and the ranch and their own role in the future of maintaining it?
Yeah, my sons, I have my cousin Tashiro. He loves the life of the Texas, the country. Goodwin. They all love being out here, this and that. With the time going on right now, with the corona going on, hasn't been too many people coming out here like they used to. My son, they love being out here outdoors, this and that. But I try to put into them, like my uncle put into me, is to keep this land going, be a part of it, take care of it, and just cherish what you have.
So I think on that note that we have some work to do, definitely, to impart to these other generations, the people that come after us, the significance and the importance of this piece. Like I said, we grew up living like this, and our children spent time there, and my son spent time with my dad there and with my grandmother, probably more than any of the other great-grandchildren or whatever. So the bond is there, but we do need to strengthen that bond and lengthen that bond, because If you don't tell these stories and write them and record them, then they die with you. And that's not going to happen though, because when I'm dead, they'll have lots of pieces of me written all around me, and all this stuff will be here in a way that it wasn't before. So that's a huge honor for us to be a part of it. Like we feel honored that they chose us. And so we have so many things. Like I want to say this about, like for instance, when my grandma passed, when she graduated from high school in 1930, they said that my grandpa Thomas gave all the girls a gold band, right? And so it happens that I have her gold band, and it has her name engraved in it, and it fits my finger perfectly. Like who could orchestrate that, right? It's crazy. So we have lots of things like the Bible story I told you about cousin Daniel Ridley, and how the cemetery is named after him as a part of respect, basically, right? Remember you told me that part?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Can you tell us just, could you both share with us anything that I haven't asked you that you would like to share about this experience and what you want people to know about it?
Well, one thing I didn't talk about is out of this work and all this stuff, I created a line of ancestral greeting cards and notebooks that reflect all these people. And the latest addition to that group of greeting cards is pictures of the branding irons and the plows that are still on the land, and the outhouse and the cemetery. And some of the cards are displayed behind me, and there's, so that's a big part of it too, because as I said, when we're gone, the pieces that we write and that we leave will long outlive us. But most people, this is the thing, most people don't understand that we all have stories. Everybody's got stories, whether you're adopted or whatever, it doesn't matter. Everybody's got stories. But the issue is that most of us will never write them or tell them, right? That won't be our story. It's written. It's still being written. Absolutely.
I want to thank Deborah, Heather, Claudia, Saycam for giving us a voice and a stage to speak on. It's really important what they're doing as far as keeping people in touch with their history is very important. People should always know their history, where they come from, where they're born. Just know it's very important. History is very important. If you don't keep it going and talk about it, it'll go to the wayside. So it's very important. I want to just thank them once again. Saycam.
Yes, thank you guys. And I thank the Most High and our ancestors because they strategically placed you at the airport to see the exhibit for me to call to make the connection with Saycam. So all of the above, absolutely. Thank you. And I'm thankful that we honor our assignment, basically. We're obedient. Otherwise, this wouldn't be happening.
That airport story is, talk about serendipity. That is one of the great that is one of the great serendipity. If that's not an advertisement for us all being able to travel again, I don't know what is.
Right.
We have some messages in the Q&As. Sir Pucci says, I love you guys. Corey Jean Sampson says,
oh, okay, yeah.
That's my son.
Yeah.
Corey Jean Sampson says, greetings and fresh blessings to you, cousins.
Yes, Corey Jean is our cousin. Her mother, her
grandma's right here behind me.
Her grandmother is. Right.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And
that's her
Velma Nanka, let me see. I want to look at the picture. Can you point? Because I just had the Q&A.
Yeah, so she's
hold it up, Kelly.
I'll take it down. Her grandmother is Priscilla. And she is right here. No, wait, she's right here. It's upside down. This one right here. So this picture is them at a dress shop that they had in Oakland for a decade or so. So Doll is in the middle, and she is the one who I mentioned before who helped save the land, and she's a part of the reason that we're still here. And so, this is part of this is some of the people that we're talking about.
And are they on an ancestral greeting card?
Yes, this is one of the cards. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
And Lola, I'm reading part of your T-shirt.
Oh yes, of course.
Okay, it looks to me like it has a message.
See it. Wait, let's see. I don't know if I can do this. Let's see. Look, which way should I go? This way?
There you go. I am my ancestors' wildest dreams.
That's me. There we go. That's
That's
us.
fantastic. That's the I think that's the kind of branding for this webinar,
Yep.
right?
It's perfect, right? It's perfect. Yeah.
Well,
so I'm thankful.
I wanna-
Thank you guys.
I want to thank you because this is such a fascinating story. And I am embarrassed to say that having worked 4 years at the San Antonio Express News and having a brother-in-law who is still in San Antonio, relatives, and my husband is a native of San Antonio, that I never got far enough away to know about the ranch. So now I am being educated. And is it possible, I don't want to put you on the spot in a public forum, but I'm going to ask anyway, is it possible to visit the ranch? Are you interested in having people come to see it? I don't know whether those are maybe part of the plans for the future or not.
Well,
So we can
Deborah
talk
and
about,
Heather.
I'll give you a call. We talk about that.
Yeah, I was talking about that.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. We'll talk on
It's
the
still a
phone
private,
about
it's still a
that
private
one.
ranch still. So
I see. Okay, yeah. I just wanted to ask out of my own curiosity.
right.
Well, I really want to thank you both because this has just been fantastic, a
Thank you,
wonderful
Professor.
and beautiful, oh,
So
a wonderful
one more
and
thing.
beautiful.
One more
Yes.
thing. I noticed that someone's asking when the last person was buried in the cemetery, and that was our cousin Deborah, right?
Yeah, Deborah Wilcox.
Last person to be interned there was our cousin Deborah. And the other question is, as a second generation Afro-American. Oh, thank you, Billy. For being
Yes.
proud of us. Thank you.
As a second generation Afro-American rancher in Southwest Bexar County, I'm truly proud of this family, says Billy Gordon.
Thank you.
And Velma Nanka Bruce, this is important work. Please keep it up.
We have
And
no choice, Velma.
I could not
And we
agree.
have a cousin named Velma too, right? I told her
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
Auntie
we have a cousin named Velma.
Well, I want to thank you so much for the incredible history of the Wilcox Ranch and your generosity in every way to your family's legacy, to the Texas legacy, to the ongoing documenting and sharing of such important stories in the Black community and in all of our communities for all of us. We learned so much today. And as a board member of the Texas Oral History Association, I do want to reiterate that oral history is one way to share our stories. Those who would like to learn more about oral history training and techniques, I encourage you to reach out to us at TOHA, the Texas Oral History Association, which is hosted by the Baylor University Institute for Oral History. Please feel free to contact us to learn more about the discipline of oral history. And I'm always happy to hear from you too. Contact me anytime at St. Edward's University, where I'm on the faculty. I want to hear your stories. I want to help you share your stories. And those of us at TOHA are really very committed professionally and personally to the work of oral history and sharing stories. And we can't do it without people like Lola and Marlon. So thank you again so much for sharing your story today and for keeping this beautiful place thriving.
Thank you so much. We're honored. And if anybody has any connections, I would love to have one of those MacArthur Genius Fellowships, to further my work. Wouldn't that be great, right? I'm speaking into existence or something similar. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. And thank you for SACAM for inviting me to participate in this and inviting TOHA. And I'm sure if anyone has further questions, we didn't really cover this, but I'm thinking if people have questions that they didn't think about now or that they may come to them, and when they see the webinar on the SACAM website, they could reach out to the museum for more information.
Definitely.
Great.
Cool. Thank you guys so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, SACAM.